is a new podcast about the women behind musical legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. These are 12 incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. It's hosted by me, Eleanor Wells, and executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now in the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Williams, and I'm so excited to launch my brand new podcast with you, Checking In with Michelle Williams, where my guests and I get real as we share the ups and downs of our mental health journeys, and I'd love for you to join me. This is going to be your church, your turn up, and everything in between. Listen to Checking In with Michelle Williams on December 22nd on The Black Effect on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to The Hurt Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for The Hurt at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a Thursday. Big NFL Fox game tonight live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, we're on Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. I have got a lot of juice today, a lot of energy. Not going to tell you the drink I'm having, but I am rolling today. Joy Taylor, how are you?
I'm great. Big game tonight.
It is. Raiders are falling apart like last year. I want to start with what appears to be really bad news for an NFL team, but I actually think it'll help propel this team to the Super Bowl. And I didn't think this 2 weeks ago. It's bad news that's actually good news. Drew Brees of the Saints has, quote, a ways to go in his injury recovery. Oh no, that's great. 4 of the last 5 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks missed time during the season. What does that mean? Well, I live in Los Angeles. LeBron James, and Joy and I talked about this quite often, looked like LeBron James in year 10, 11, or 12, not year 17 in the playoffs. Why? He didn't have to fly during the playoffs. LeBron didn't have to travel in the playoffs. The season got shortened. It was a huge break for LeBron James. He hasn't played with that much energy since he was in Miami and maybe year 1 or 2 in Miami. We watched Clayton Kershaw, who had struggled in the postseason. Baseball regular season is very long, and Clayton Kershaw was better in the postseason. Why? Because he didn't have to get on a plane as much. Clayton Kershaw had more time to rest, fewer innings. As you well know, folks, as you get older, you can still bring it, just not quite as often. Uncle Colin can still party like a rock star, but he needs a nap the next day. What the Saints are doing is what Peyton Manning and the Broncos did to win that Super Bowl. You remember Peyton Manning got beat up and injured, rested, relieved by Brock Osweiler. Peyton came back and looked fresher. And Peyton wasn't nearly as good at that point as Drew Brees is now. The last 2 years, Drew Brees has looked gassed by the end of the season. Remember that? Last year he missed 5 games. He came back. Do you remember that? He was great. His numbers were amazing. The year before, he didn't. He played 15 games. And in the last 3 or 4, he had 3 touchdowns and 3 picks. Drew Brees has 1 year left. This is it. This is perfect. This is rest. And this team is led by defense anyway. 2 other factors here. Number 1, this is the one time in the Saints' recent history that I think they play as well on the road as at home. There's no road fans. They're not built for a dome. They don't throw the ball deep. 70% of this team is defense. This is the rare Saints team that's as good on the road as they are at home. They don't get the home crowd. They don't face the road crowd. And their offense consists of a receiver in Michael Thomas that rarely goes deep, and Alvin Kamara and Emmanuel Sanders. That's not Tyreek Hill. The second thing is, what an advantage for New Orleans. So they host Kansas City this weekend. Many would submit to you the Chiefs and the Saints will meet in the Super Bowl. Well, New Orleans can play Taysom Hill. They can do RPOs. They can give the Chiefs a completely different look. So whereas the Saints defense, which is as deep as any in the league, gets a look at Kansas City's real offense, the Saints can throw out all sorts of nonsense they never run against the Chiefs in a Super Bowl. Decoys, trick plays, RPOs. Drew Brees comes back, totally different offense. This is a bad news is really good news situation. It makes me like the Saints more than I've liked them. Right now, they feel like a Super Bowl team. A fresh Drew Brees. They play the Chiefs with a backup. They throw things out they'd never use in a rematch. Kansas City probably wins, little revenge. And here comes this defensive-led team playing in Tampa for the first time the Chiefs defense, good not special, seeing Brees and company. All right, so Kirk Herbstreit does a fine job. He works for ESPN. He does a great job covering college football. They also have a guy named Tom Rinaldi who works for them who's great. Oh, wait, not anymore. Anywho, Herbstreit said this yesterday. He said, our postseason in college football is as bad as any. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, hold on. He said, we got to figure out a system that works for everybody. Our season ends January 12th. I can already tell you, Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson will be in the Final Four next year. We have got to figure this out. We have got to tweak the system for the betterment of the sport. We're at a fork in the road right now on a lot of levels, and we've got to look at some potential changes. First of all, amen. Hire a CEO instead of having 5 power conferences all doing their own thing. Secondly, 85 scholarships, make it 70 to 75, so Clemson can't take a 3rd or 4th running back every year, keeping that kid away from an opportunity to start for another college football program. But we are going to see, and perhaps this summer or next, a major change coming in college football. I have been told this now by 3 different people. We're going to an 8-team playoff. And we're not going to go to an 8-team playoff this summer or next summer because Cincinnati's getting jobbed at 8-0. We're going to it due to COVID. The pandemic has decimated college athletic departments, unraveled, broken them, and there is no federal bailout for college football. And college presidents have been against an extended playoff because of finals. But when given the option of an athletic department that is reeling financially and cutting many sports, often that give young kids from tough economic backgrounds opportunities to change a generation of family, the presidents will cave. We are going to get, due to the pandemic and the unraveling of athletic departments, and there is no federal bailout coming, we're getting an 8-team playoff. 2 things to know about that. Be careful what you wish for. It will not change anything. 7 of the 8 teams that get in will be from Power 5 conferences, or if they go to 10 or 12 teams, it'll be 10 of 12, 11 of 12. It should be they pay all the bills. And it will also not change any of the results. The media's got this thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a liberal thing. Maybe, I don't know. More equals fairness. No, it doesn't. No, it really doesn't. There's more companies and competition in America than ever. And nobody's ever dominated retail like Amazon, or tech like Facebook, Google, and Apple. More is just more, but the cream always rises. Just know this, that in the history of the college football playoff, the semifinal games, and remember, Joe, those were added for fairness. We have got to create fairness. The old system is not fair. We're going to create a playoff, and it's got to be fair. We've had 12 semifinal games. The average margin of victory has been 3 touchdowns. There have been 3 one-possession games. And they were added to make it more fair. So anybody can compete. Nobody can compete. When we go to an 8-team playoff, this is absolutely what's going to happen. What would happen this year? There'd be 8 teams. 4 of them would be the SEC. You'd complain about that. It would be more SEC teams thumping Coastal Carolina and Iowa State. You would complain about that. And the college kids at 17 and 18 would now see the gap between the top 3 or 4 and the others, and it would give the others less of a chance to get those great players. A college football playoff is coming. Be careful what you wish for. There's 2 ways to help this sport, and they're really obvious. Joy and I talk about this all the time. You've got to have a centralized voice that brings all 5 conferences fighting for the greater good of one. Too much what they call balkanization right now. And secondly, you can't have Alabama taking 6 corners when they need 3 a class to keep some away from Kentucky and Ole Miss. Make it hard. Lighter practices. 70 scholarships only. You can't grind the players at practice. Fewer practice hours. You have an injury at Bama or Clemson, you lose the following Saturday. You know how it works in high school or the NFL. But we're getting a playoff due to the pandemic. It's not going to change anything, and we're going to complain about it. Be careful what you ask for. All right. So, yesterday Aaron Rodgers said he was hoping for something, and he's a smart guy, but I actually think it's the last thing Aaron Rodgers needs if he wants to win a Super Bowl. That is coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Do you like fresh out of the oven chocolate chip cookies? Do you love wholesome heteronormative lifestyle? And do you like pretending that menstrual cycles just don't exist? Then you'll hate Tampon Rock. Tampon Rock is a scripted comedy podcast, kind of like Friends, except gay and with black people. So, actually, really not like Friends at
Right.
all.
But it is about friends.
Mhm.
They have a band, they live in Oakland. Also, it's a musical, but not a musical like you're thinking of.
Chicago.
Shout out.
And what I love is that these songs in Tampon Rock typically set up the next
You know what?
scene.
Why don't we just show them?
Roll the clip. The roof is filled with lesbians.
She got a period. So there you have it.
A little tease, if you please.
Listen and follow Tampon Rock on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey there, it's Ryen. You know, these days it's pretty easy to feel way too overwhelmed and disconnected, not only from each other but ourselves. My new podcast, Holy Human, focuses on living our best, fullest lives by expanding into our most complete and whole selves. I'd love you to join me as I sit down with people who I've found to be some of the world's most inspiring and enlightening motivators, healers, and wise souls. Together, we'll make more sense of this crazy existence we all share, ourselves and each other. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Ryen, on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
New streaming service coming. Discovery Plus starts next year. Favorite brands plus exclusive originals. Discovery Plus. Greg Cosell topping next hour. Good to have you in. So, I always find it. Aaron Rodgers and LeBron James are always a little coy. They know exactly every award they've won. You know, they always kind of play it off like they don't care, but they certainly bring it up whenever asked. Aaron Rodgers, who I would vote for MVP today, was asked about winning another one. Here's Aaron Rodgers.
Well, Bill, there's not many guys that have won 3, so that would definitely mean a lot. I feel like I've been in the conversation, a number of years outside of the 2 that I've won. We're talking about in 12 when AP went nuts against us in the last game of the year. I had a pretty good year that year. Obviously, in 16, we made our run and led the league in passing touchdowns. Didn't really get a sniff for some reason that year, but I definitely felt like I was in the conversation. it's nice to be back in the conversation. It'd be something that's usually on the preseason goal list, and it's nice to be in the conversation.
I'm not even going to go there. It's fine. I would vote for him. Enough said. Anyway, very LeBron. Okay, so if I was a quarterback, and you could tell me going in, because I read a lot about history. I watch the History Channel. I like looking back at some things in football and what works and what data and analytics and where are sports going and where have they been and what's working, what's evolving, and what's not working. If I was a quarterback and I wanted to play in the NFL, I would not want to win a Heisman, and I would not want to be an MVP at quarterback. Why? Well, let's talk numbers. Last 20 years, no NFL quarterback who won MVP won the Super Bowl. Last to do it was Kurt Warner in '99. There's a reason for it, by the way. There's a reason for it. And oh, by the way, the best quarterback in the NFL that's ever won a Heisman was Roger Staubach in 1963 at Navy. These are not coincidences. Why did Kurt Warner win the MVP? Why don't MVPs at quarterback, you know the answer to this, why don't they win Super Bowls? It seems so linear. Best quarterback, best year, Super Bowl. Because it tells you, A, you're probably in some shootouts and your defense isn't as good as you wish, and secondly, you're too quarterback reliant. You should run the football more. Russell Wilson is better with a running game. So is Aaron Rodgers. So if you're piling up stats, this is one of the things I've said about Mahomes. We're in awe of his talent. But last year, his passer rating, I forget if it was 12th or 18th in the NFL. He doesn't lead the NFL in pass attempts. You don't want your team to have a quarterback throwing 45 touchdowns. You're too quarterback reliant. You should lead games in the second half, run the ball, eat the clock. Now, if you have a running back that leads the NFL in rushing, it tells me you've got leads in games and you're trying to eat the clock. Similarly to the Heisman. I don't want to win the Heisman. Why? Roger Staubach, last great NFL quarterback, won the Heisman. Why? Because if you're winning the Heisman, it means you're at a kind of offensive-leaning program that probably runs a kind of a quirky college offense or a very collegiate offense. So transitioning to the NFL from that is harder. And it also tells me you probably play at a school with 5-star and 4-star offensive linemen and 4- and 5-star tight ends and wide receivers. So the talent gap you're playing with in college is not anything close to the kind of talent gap in the NFL where you're going to a bad team, right? You're going to go from Joe Burrow and LSU, huge talent gap, to Cincinnati, arguably first or second worst roster in the NFL. So if you go look at the last 8 to 9 Super Bowl quarterbacks where they went to school, the matchup in the Super Bowl last year was Texas Tech against Eastern Illinois. In the last 10 years, we've had a Delaware against Nevada, a Cal against the Miami of Ohio, a Purdue against Tennessee, a backup quarter at Michigan against Cal, a Michigan against Boston College, a Wisconsin, Michigan, an NC State, Tennessee. And by the way, Tennessee is no longer a great program. It's a mess. The point being, you'd think it would be Bama against Ohio State. Boston College has had multiple quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. USC's never had one. And USC's had more players drafted in the NFL than any school in history, including Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma. So the point being is, if you knew now you wanted to win Super Bowls, this isn't baseball, we don't care about stats, we care about winning Super Bowls, right? You would not want to win the Heisman. It means your college experience, you went to a place with dominating players in a crazy offense, and the transition to the NFL is very difficult from that. And you wouldn't want to win MVPs because it means I'm in too many shootouts. I should be running the ball the last 9 minutes of the game. I should be throwing about 29, maybe these days 33 times a game, running the football late. So the award, the MVP, I wouldn't want it. It would tell me my defense isn't as good as it should be. Enjoy the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line.
By the way, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, the 2 stars, and to a large degree, Lamar Jackson. What all 3 have in common? They didn't go to traditional football powers. Louisville's not, it's a basketball power more than a football power, meaning they threw to 2- and 3-star wide receivers. They didn't have NFL guys all in front of them. They had to often run for their life and make stuff happen. happened. Well, that's the NFL when you go to often a bad team in the top 10 picks.
Like where Trevor Lawrence may go?
Right. That's it's harder for him. He's going to go from never getting hit to getting hit 9 times and sacked 4 times a game.
Well, he's expected to be the first overall pick in the draft next year, which means he'll probably be a New York Jet. And he told Dan Patrick that he is ready to embrace the challenge of playing for a team that's not very good.
I know some of this stuff I say sounds cliche, but just to have the opportunity to go somewhere, help someone rebuild if that's what it is, or whatever, and just win. That's what, something I love doing. I think that's what I'm best at is winning. Regardless of stats, whatever it is, that's what I love. So just to have that chance, obviously some places it'll be more of a challenge than others, but I think I'm up for it, and that'll get here when it's here. Just trying to focus now on being great where I'm at.
He also said he doesn't want to completely shut any door when he was asked if he's 100% leaving Clemson. I don't anticipate that he is going to stay. Clemson would be a very poor decision.
Trevor, just go to college. I mean, Joe Burrow was having a great year at Cincinnati. I know he got hurt, but just go to pros. Don't stay in college. It's a huge. Andrew Luck.
It's a massive risk, and for what?
He is probably. I saw him at a camp in San Diego 3 years ago. He was a high school senior, and he was the most impressive thrower of the football I've ever seen in high school. It was in San Diego at Steve Clark's camp.
Trevor Lawrence?
Trevor Lawrence. And he was a southern kid with this rock star hair. And they had all these kids from California.
Sunshine.
Yeah, and he was throwing the football, and it was remarkable for a high school player. He was so effortlessly great. And I remember telling the guy that ran the camp, I'm like, he's not the highest rated one. He's like, he's the best one.
When you look at the Jets situation, it's really not, obviously they're terrible.
Cap space.
They have cap space.
Ton of picks.
They have a ton of picks. They're going to get a new coach. It's not the worst situation to go to.
No, it's not. Jags is way worse.
And guess what? Next year, the team that's picking at top of the draft, if you stay in college another year, they're going to be bad too. Because that's what happens.
Also,
that's how you get to the top of the draft.
You're going to have a larger field of top candidates be interested because of Trevor Lawrence's talent. So you're going to get some guys who wouldn't take the job with a Sam Darnold will take it now and apply for it. Big-time college guys.
I'm very excited to see what he does in the NFL. And I'm excited for this draft also.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, I can't.
This year's draft was one of the most, obviously it was extremely memorable because of everything that was going on. But on top of it being the only live thing that we had to watch, it really ended up being a great draft.
Okay, so let's go right. Here's the draft order for our radio audience. You can't see this, but Jets would take Trevor Lawrence. Jags would take the Ohio State quarterback, Justin Fields. Bengals probably take the Oregon left tackle, Penei Sewell, and move Jonah Williams left tackle over to right to protect Burrow. It's not terrible. Chargers would love that left tackle. Chargers probably have to go. The kid from Penn State, the linebacker. Derwin James is hurt too much. They need a leader defensively in the middle of that defense. And the Cowboys probably get an anchor defensively up front.
The Cowboys and the Bengals are the most interesting in the top 5 to me because if the Cowboys don't take a quarterback, they need a lot of players.
Yeah.
So they could move, and the Bengals could move as well.
Panthers probably take a quarterback, and a perfect situation. The mature Teddy Bridgewater for a year or two is your mentor. That's very Alex Smith and Mahomes. So
they went all defenses this past
last year. So this year they probably get a quarterback and just say sit behind a pro, Teddy Bridgewater for 2 years. That rule situation is going to work. Carolina's on their way to being really interesting in about 2 years.
So the Steelers have lost back-to-back games and don't look like the same team that started by winning winning 11 straight. But Roethlisberger doesn't want anyone to panic about the way the offense has been playing recently.
There's a lot of outside noise, right? And deservedly so. We haven't played well. We've lost 2 in a row. The fans are getting anxious. The talking heads are doing what they're supposed to do and talk bad about us and all that stuff, which is, we've earned it and deserved it recently. What I would tell guys, and the mindset, the approach that I'm taking is it's not going to the world. We've got 3 games left in the regular season. We have 3 weeks now to get it going, to turn it around, to give ourselves the best chance to reach our ultimate goal, which is winning a Super Bowl.
I love being a talking head. Don't you love being a talking head?
I do.
It makes me so happy.
I'm just a head that's talking.
I love being a talking head. Well, the last 3 weeks of the season look like this for the Steelers. They have the Bengals this week on Monday night, which obviously we also
That's a Monday night game?
Yeah.
What a cruddy Monday night game that is.
Then the Colts and Steelers. Which could go either way.
Colts and
No, Colts. It's Steelers,
It's
Bengals, and
Colts.
Colts, Steelers.
Yeah.
And then Steelers, Browns is week 17.
I think Cleveland today is better than Pittsburgh. I really do. I
They're
really
certainly
do.
playing better than
Yeah,
Pittsburgh.
I-
I think if they play today, the Steelers win. But like if they played this week, I think the Steelers would win.
I do not.
Well, here's the issue with the Steelers. Well, there's multiple issues with this. There's lots of issues with the Steelers. They had big-time injuries, Devin Bush, Bud Dupree.
Huge.
They can't rush the ball.
Nope.
They have 68 total rushing yards in their 2 losses. So that right there is a glaring issue. Everyone knows that you have to have an active run game if you're going to win in this league. You can't just rely on Big Ben throwing it 70 times a game. But the other major issue, and this is also playing into why there's so many drops, is everyone knows he can't throw over the top.
Right.
So he's averaged 6.8 yards per attempt this season, 7th fewest among 35 qualified quarterbacks this season, 6.8 air yards this season. They've dropped 10 passes in their 2 losses, 6 against Washington and 4 against the Bills.
God.
Because he can't throw it over the top and no one's afraid of the long ball, the defense crowds up
Yeah.
and just suffocates, and that's on top of I think that they have a real focus problem right now. That's why they're dropping so many balls.
It's funny. I watch that offense and I'm like, I am stunned by smart people in the media watching that. And Buffalo did not have a great defense, thinking that is a Super Bowl offense. I think they're. I've said before, I'm not sure they're a top 10 team. I know it's disrespectful, but when Ben was in his prime, they never felt quite buttoned up. Now they've lost 2 linebackers. They can't run. He can't throw deep. Even watching their highlights, I'm like, that is not a Super Bowl offense.
I think even with the injuries, their defense is still in good shape. They've got to figure out the running game situation. Like just do that against the Bengals. Just run the ball. Like figure out how to get that established again because you're going to need that in the playoffs. Finally, Cam Newton has not had the season he or the Patriots were hoping for so far, but Brian Flores is not underestimating Cam ahead of their game on Sunday. He said, I think he's a very good player in this league. I think he does a really good job extending plays. I think his ability to scramble is something that you always have to take into consideration on every snap. I think he's a leader. I think he's a problem.
This is
very,
my bet
very
of the week.
Belichickian
Yeah, it
of
is.
Brian Flores.
I'm not saying which way I'm going. This is my bet of the week in Blazing 5.
So it is in Blazing 5. We all know how Bill Belichick is against rookies. He's 21-5 against rookie quarterbacks with the Patriots, including the playoffs, and 8-0 against rookie quarterbacks since 2015. Obviously, Cam does not have the throwing game that he once had, but he is still a huge issue running the ball. Miami is 22nd in rush yards allowed per game and 18th in passing yards allowed per game, but they are tied first in takeaways. I think if they can win the turnover battle, Miami, that they'll take this game even with Tua as a rookie quarterback.
My favorite bet of the week, my favorite bet in 2 weeks is this game. Blazing 5 tomorrow. Enjoy the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The herd.
So when
by
Aaron
news.
Rodgers was talking about, I don't know why I wanted that year, Joy and I were looking at each other. It was airing and we were kind of rolling our eyes. I have a feeling Ryen Russillo, the ringer, he's got a great podcast now joining me live, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Let me guess you're going to defend Aaron Rodgers because you guys are both cool, but good Lord, he was a little LeBron-esque, was he not? A little?
All right, but see, he's on fire this year, and you've been anti this guy for like 2 decades, so you can't help yourself. So, I mean, Rodgers even to the point when we were all back in the day doing radio shows across the hall from each other, I think Rodgers even reached out to Van Pelt, was like, what's with that guy? Why doesn't he like me? So, I think he's in a no-win situation. Yes, these guys, I think coy is the right word. But if Rodgers says, I don't care about MVPs, it's not important to me, then he's not telling the truth either. So a lot of this is just you can't really win. And winning a third one, considering only a handful of guys have ever done it, I thought it was, look, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Look, he hasn't been good for 2 years. You were feeling great about shorting Aaron Rodgers for like 15 years, which you would have lost money on it because you were on it so early. And then he's come back and maybe he wins it again. But I still think the Mahomes stuff. By the way, can we jump to what you said before? Because I was losing it over here.
Okay.
I mean, whether we went History Channel, Normandy, analytics, 2-star recruits, I agree with you on the Heisman quarterback theory. But sometimes things happen and it actually doesn't mean anything. The MVP run is an incredibly interesting stat, and then you turn it into a segment, and I'm afraid I might not get invited back here. But think about how close it was. Mahomes, if there's not an offsides, that's an MVP win in a Super Bowl year, all right? So they would have won the Super Bowl. Brady's shootout with Philly, he wins an MVP that year. He was unbelievable in the Super Bowl. The defense was terrible. He also has the 2010 MVP, the 2007 where Brady was undefeated, and if it's not for David Tyree, then an MVP wins a Super Bowl. So I think it's something that happens, but it doesn't mean that from now on you go, you know what I really want? I want a quarterback that's just kind of like right at number 6, number 7. That's what I'm looking for.
Listen, I like the pushback. I'm always fond of the
Okay.
pushback. That's why I bring you on the show to push back, because I'm almost never wrong, but occasionally it happens. Okay.
Maybe, yes,
Okay,
maybe.
so people think sometimes we do stuff for clicks, but we both know each other, and I've been on this for like 4 weeks. I watch Pittsburgh play. They can't throw deep. They can't run the ball. They can't catch the ball. I look at them and I'm like, I don't care about their record. I don't care. That is not a Super Bowl team. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I think you're dismissive. I mean, if I have to sit here and tell you you're wrong and then pick the Steelers to win the Super Bowl, I'm not going to do that because I'm just going to pick anybody against the Chiefs. I'm just not going to. But Pittsburgh's defense, any category you want to look at, you can go traditional stuff, you can go advanced metrics, anything you want to look at, it's like at worst the 3rd or 4th defense in the league. And it's been that way all year long, even with some of the losses in that front 7. And the reason why they've still been able to be pretty good defensively is that front has been so impressive from just a depth standpoint. Now, that Bills game was ugly. I don't know what to tell you. Joy's absolutely right. They're not a physical team. They struggle to run the football. They've had some decisions in short yardage scenarios where you're like, okay, who are you right now? But they found a way with this incredible receiving core to let Ben approach the game differently by not taking deep shots, and they've been able to move it. Look, the loss to Washington is an incredibly underrated defensive team. I was dismissive. I was like, you're losing all these games, so they've ripped off a few, so they hit him at the right time. That defense is really good. And Buffalo, whose defense actually is a lot worse this year than it was last year, maybe it's getting better. I just thought that was the kind of game we watched together. Buffalo was clearly the better football team, but I'm not just writing off and putting teams like Tennessee and Cleveland as automatic wins against Pittsburgh right now.
Ryen Russillo, the Ryen Russillo podcast, part of the Ringer. Bill Never Calls Me. So, let's just be honest. Let's not have any qualifiers on Brady. I'm just going to say to you, when you watch Tom Brady, I do think Tampa looks like a collection of talent and not a team. That's why they're so wildly inconsistent. It's got kind of an AAU basketball feel to it, where I know the guys are all great, but they're all kind of doing their own thing. But let's just talk Brady. When you watch Brady today, is he good? Is he average? Forget the stats. What do you see? Physicality, arm, all in.
He's good. This is the best I've seen him throw the football in 3 years. I'm actually blown away by it. I mean, there was that Carolina game where they put a 40 where I couldn't believe the velocity and just juice behind some of these throws. It was really impressive. And, part of it is the offense, but from an arm standpoint at 43, that's not the question at all. It's clearly that Tom is in a situation where he's not as comfortable because it's all new guys. Where in New England, you're coming into his world. It's his offense. It's an evolution of almost 2 decades of him understanding all the different things that he wants you to do. A lot of it is those quick routes off the line of scrimmage where they just understood with the rule changes that they get separation and they move the sticks that way. So I think it's been him not necessarily always comfortable. But if you're saying, hey, he's not the same old Brady, okay, yeah, fine. He's not the best quarterback in the league. He's really probably not one of the top 4 or 5, but he's still really, really good. And this Tampa team, despite the record, has moments where I go, look, they're the opposite ends throughout the entire season, Colin. We know that. They've had marquee games where they look awful, and they've had other games where they've beaten good teams. I thought the Minnesota win was a nice win considering who the Vikings have been, so I like the way he's looked, but I don't look at him as the guy that's leading the league anymore. I don't think anyone else should.
I got to ask you an NBA question, Joy and I were talking about this yesterday. I read the article on Harden, and I said yesterday, wait a minute. Am I bothered by what he did, or am I just bothered because he doesn't win? Because if he won a title, I wouldn't give a rip if he went to strip clubs and showed up late to practice. Michael Jordan punch teammates was difficult. LeBron can be a diva. So you're a guy with an incredible NBA Rolodex. And I know we both knew this stuff was going on. I mean, I was told this stuff, and you've got a deeper Rolodex NBA guys than I do. And I do read it, and I think this is cartoonish. And I think, what bothers me about Harden is he unravels in the playoffs. I don't give a rip about this stuff. So, are you bothered by the lack of winning or his actions? And do you think this goes on everywhere, or Harden is just really uniquely diva?
Well, okay, that's a lot of different things. First of all, just because you win doesn't mean everybody's doing the right things all the time, all right? So I think we both understand that. There's plenty of teams that have won championships where you go, wait, that guy does that, or he doesn't like him, or what's going on there? So that stuff happens. That's not a problem. I also think the diva part of it, these front offices and ownership are so scared because you need one of these 5, really probably more 5 than 10 guys in the league, but they're so important to have on your team because if you don't have it, you don't have a chance that you start to cater to them. But what I'd ask, which I thought was so funny about the article, and you and I have been laughing about this, is that Westbrook, who controlled everything in Oklahoma City, okay, from the temperature to which reporters he talked to if you big, you weren't allowed to get rebounds off a free throw. Like, you had to let Westbrook get the rebound. It was understood that he goes from that dominant force culture to Houston is like, man, this place is messed up. Like, think about that. Think about it. Now, Westbrook's argument would be, we show up on time. Houston's approach apparently is like, plane departures were like suggestions, okay? So all of this stuff starts to come out because now once your guy is turned on you, like Harden is turned on Houston. This happened when LeBron left Cleveland the first time. I made an article about all the concessions that they had to make to LeBron. I don't mind concessions. I don't even mind the divas asking for this stuff. Sometimes I wish I were more delusional in my career and just be like, yeah, I'm awesome, like do more stuff for me. But what I'd ask any of these guys, and I think this is the point that you're getting to here, is does this help you win? Is winning important, or do you just post stuff on Instagram where you're like, man, I'm built for one thing? You're like, what? Max contracts and freedom of travel? So that's the part that is frustrating because it feels like, and look, Harden's playoff resume is flame out central, okay? Flame outs all over the place. I don't understand why Houston fans still defend him. He doesn't want anything to do with you. Westbrook loses in the first round all the time, unless he goes somewhere else. So we could be really unfair and say it's only happening, they're only losing because of these guys' approach. But I think there's other teams that also cater to guys that actually win games. It just looks this bad when you've gone out and you're in Vegas and Atlanta and then you have media availability and you're like, yeah, I was my personal trainer. What's the problem?
Right. All right, Ryen. We'll talk soon. Great seeing you, buddy. You've really done a nice job sprucing up the place. I knew when you used to. Anyway, you're doing well for yourself. Congrats. You got like 2 coffee makers or something back there. Way to go, buddy. Nice talking.
Yeah, thanks, man. Espresso.
All right, Ryen Russillo podcast. Bill doesn't call me. I'll just drop that out again. All right, coming up next, I do this about once every 3 weeks. If the playoffs started today, here's what they look like. Here's who I pick, and here's who ends up in the Super Bowl. I'm telling you, there's some great playoff games if it ended today. Some unbelievable playoff games. Star quarterbacks going up against each other.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
You're going to come into a new season of joy and fulfillment like you've never seen. Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I have a daily podcast where I talk about overcoming obstacles, accomplishing dreams, and becoming all you were created to be. You were made for more. You have new levels in you. There are seeds of greatness waiting to spring forth. You can't think negative thoughts and live a positive life. And on my daily podcast, I'll help you get your mind going in the right direction. You may have had some disappointments in the past, but this is a new day. Chains that have held you back are being broken. Doors are going to open that you never dreamed would open. Now do your part. Keep feeding your hopes, feeding your dreams. Don't use your energy to feed your history. Use your energy to feed your destiny. It's inspiring, uplifting, and encouraging. I think you'll like it.
Listen to the Joel Osteen podcast on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you own or rent a home? Sure you do. Fortunately, Geico makes it easy to bundle all that into your car insurance. Go to geico.com. It's easy. So we do this. I do this about once a month where I say, let's just pretend the playoffs ended today. Now, a lot of what's happening in the playoffs, 75% it's locked in or really close to being locked in. The teams that have the division leads, they're going to be favorites down the stretch, barring a quarterback injury. The wild cards may change, but I don't think they'll change dramatically, although I see one potential move. So let's go to we have a little playoff music. Let's go to the AFC. As of now, the number 1 team, Kansas City, would have a bye in the first round. So the 7-seeded Dolphins would travel to Pittsburgh to face the 2nd-seeded Steelers. I take Miami this morning. I think they're a better football team. I think they're tighter. They're not turning it over. They can run it and throw it, and the receivers can catch the ball. I'm going to take Miami for the upset at Pittsburgh. I would take the Bills to beat the Colts. It'll be snowy, windy, and cold, and I just think they have more playmakers offensively and an athletic quarterback in Josh Allen against the league's least athletic quarterback. Titans, Browns, I'm going to take Cleveland again. said it a couple of weeks ago, and I'll say it again. I think it is a great matchup for the Browns. They don't have a pass rush. That means Baker Mayfield is comfortable. That means Baker Mayfield can play with a lead. Kevin Stefanski and the staff keep it, the bumper car rule, keep it in the middle here. The bowling alley when you're a little kid, keep it in the middle. You don't have to go outside and make plays that don't exist. I think Cleveland beats the Titans. I think it's one of the Titans' worst matchups in the AFC is Cleveland. Next round, Kansas City rested, now host the Dolphins. Miami's still a year away. It's baby steps. This is a Kansas City win, and convincingly. Browns-Bills, this is not a great matchup for Cleveland. They're going to have to get into a shootout because their back seven in Cleveland is not good, and Buffalo's got all sorts of weapons and the strongest arm quarterback in the league. Don't like this matchup for Cleveland. I like Buffalo convincingly. Cleveland should pray for bad weather, so both offenses struggle, but I take the Bills. Then we go into the AFC Championship game. Chiefs, the 1 seed, Bills, the 3 seed. I like Buffalo today. A better team that's better in the red zone, playing better defense, very healthy, on a roll with momentum, fewer penalties last 3 weeks. Buffalo upsets, it's not much of an upset, upsets the Chiefs, probably about a 3.5 point spread. Buffalo's in the Super Bowl. Let's go to the NFC. Cardinals at the Saints. Obviously Green Bay has a bye. This is a bad matchup for Arizona. Saints win the game convincingly. Rams also at home, already beaten the Buccaneers once. I think their defensive line pressures Tom Brady. Goff is more comfortable. Rams beat the Buccaneers convincingly. Seahawks at Washington, second time they've met in a month. I'll take Seattle as long as their running backs are healthy. Second round in the NFC looks like this. Green Bay now off a bye and rested and healthy against the Seahawks. I like Seattle. If Chris Carson, Penny, Homer, and DJ Dallas and are healthy, I think they're a bad matchup for Green Bay. This is not a team. Also, Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf. They're both going to have their way in that game. I like Seattle against Green Bay. I like the Colts against Green Bay. It's a bad matchup. Rams-Saints is a complete coin flip. This is the one team in the NFC that matches up with the Saints. I'm going to go New Orleans in overtime. Check back with me in 3 weeks on the health of both teams. Then we get to the NFC Championship, Seattle at the Saints. I'm going to take, again, this is really close. I'm going to take the Saints now that Drew Brees is probably not going to play like a Clayton Kershaw, a LeBron, or a Drew Brees last year, or a Peyton Manning in Denver. He comes in fresh and rested. The rest of the league has to go way back to look at Saints film because they've been running Taysom Hill's offense for the previous 5-6 weeks. I'll take the Saints close in this game. My Super Bowl, Bills and Saints, and I'm not predicting that until I see it. So, by the way, I've been on Kansas City and Seattle in my 2 previous predictions. This morning, I'm Bills and Saints.
I had Saints-Ravens at the beginning of the year.
All right.
Obviously, Ravens not looking
Well,
so hot, but
that's the one team I think is going to get in. Just keep your eye on the Ravens. Streaming service coming now next year called Discovery Plus, U.S. only. They've got your favorite brands like the Food Network and HDTV and exclusive originals. NFL Meat Sandwich, Greg Cosell. Next.
Are you a music fan?
Do you need more music talk in your life?
Then you should be listening to Record Store Society, a music talk show podcast on the iHeartRadio network.
Record Store Society is a virtual trip to your local record store, hosted by me, Tara Davies.
And me, Seth Nicholas Johnson.
Every Friday, you'll find Seth and I behind the counter at your favorite record store, dispensing recommendations, making lists, and talking to our customers about anything and everything music related.
So listen to Record Store Society on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you like fresh out of the oven chocolate chip cookies? Do you love wholesome heteronormative lifestyles? Do you like pretending that menstrual cycles just don't exist? Then you'll hate Tampon Rock. Tampon Rock is a scripted comedy podcast, kind of like Friends, except gay and with black people. So, actually, really not like Friends.
Right. But it is about friends. And it's a musical, sorta. But that's all the time we have, so...
Listen and follow Tampon Rock on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever listen to podcasts.
It's pretty easy these days to feel disconnected. We're pulled in so many different directions, and that can leave us feeling incredibly fragmented. But together, we can grow more connected to ourselves and to each other. And that is what my new podcast is all about, coming home to our wholeness. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
About a Girl is a new podcast about the women behind musical legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. These are 12 incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. It's hosted by me, Eleanor Wells, and executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now in the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
All right, here we go. It's hour 2. We're live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. Great to have. I just read the news. Media critics Tom Rinaldi is coming over to Fox. He's terrific. He's a friend. And he's coming over here. And I'm not sure why you'd ever let him go if you're a company, but he's ours now. And we talked a few weeks ago. Said it's a nice place to work on most days. You got to deal with management. Joking.
I have to deal with management most places. But welcome, Tom.
Welcome, Tom. It's great to have you in. It's really a talented guy. So, anyway, Joy Taylor. So tonight the Raiders play the Chargers.
Yes.
And something is happening. I'm not a big believer in coincidences. But in the last 2 years with John Gruden, they are 4-10 post-Thanksgiving. They're awful. Last year, they were blown out by the Jets, the Titans, and the Chiefs, and lost to the Jags in Denver. Bad teams. This year, they've been blown out by Atlanta and blown out by the Colts. So in 5 of the 7 games, if you go look 4-10 after Thanksgiving, 5 blowout losses last couple of years, and then some narrow losses. So something is amiss, something is off. Does Gruden, I don't know, does he wear players out? Not saying that. Are they still so thin defensively that they've fallen apart? You can't blame the injuries. Everybody in this league is dealing with injuries. The Eagles are all beat up last weekend. Don't ask me how the Eagles beat the Saints because they had 9 guys during the game walk off. So you got to overcome that. But if the Chargers at 4-9 beat the Raiders tonight, we have a little bit of a trend, which is the last couple of years with the Raiders. And we know it's not because they don't have talent. This year they beat the Saints and the Chiefs. So we know their talent's there. But they have been really bad post-Thanksgiving. And if they lose tonight, we got a trend that it's not a good one for Captain John Gruden. With that, Greg Cosell. You bet football, you play fantasy football, you just love football, you get smarter. We call it our NFL meat sandwich. Greg Cosell, 41 years NFL films, joining me live. Okay, so I look at Justin Herbert, and I look at the draft position of the Chargers, and I think to myself, boy, if they could get 3 or 4, they'd get left tackle and Herbert for the next 10 years. That feels like what they need, or kind of a centerpiece defensively, a linebacker, but be that as it may, we know that Herbert's the key to the future. What has he done you're surprised with? What has been the key, as we watch him tonight, to his success this year?
Well, I think 2 things that probably were concerns for a lot of people, Colin, when he came out of Oregon, and you're very familiar with quarterbacks and the Pac-12. I think there was the anticipation issue. There was a sense that he did not really throw with the needed timing and anticipation. And number 2, there was also a sense that the ball placement was not quite consistent enough. And I think those 2 things have somewhat been put to rest. He's made some outstanding ball placement throws both from the pocket and on the move. And they've done a really nice job with the play design as well to help him with timing and anticipation, because you can create play concepts in which the ball does come out, and that can help a quarterback. But he's been really, really good in those areas. And those were 2 questions coming out.
Yep. I want to tell you, we'll see him tonight. Let's talk Josh Allen. Wild at Wyoming. I remember watching him play Iowa and Oregon, and he was the wild pony. He was out of the barn. There was something there and a lot of energy. Then he goes to the NFL in his first year. He's wild. A completion percentage in the mid to high 50s. And now, in the last 3 to 4 weeks, he's a model of consistency. Coaching, scheme, what is it?
Well, I think his mechanics have become a little more compact. He may never look like Tom Brady, but I think that more throws now, you can see everything working together better. And mechanics are usually not talked about very often with quarterbacks. We talk about arm talent, we talk about mobility, we talk about many things. But I think you're seeing now his hips, his shoulder, his arm angle, all working more consistently on his throws. And I think that's the reason, Colin, that he's able to make more throws that require pace and touch. It's why he's able to hit Beasley on whip routes or pivot routes. It's why he's able to hit Stephon Diggs nicely on hitch routes or slant routes. Throws that you don't drive. They're not velocity throws. They're throws that require some pace and touch and precise ball placement. Because run after catch on throws like that, that's a function of the quarterback, not of the receiver.
So we're going to have a disagreement here. One of the things that always drove me crazy about Jay Cutler, drives me nuts about Drew Lock. They play with a casualness.
I would agree.
Russell Wilson tends to play with an urgency. You sense with Drew Brees, every play he is completely focused. And Locke and Jay Cutler, though arm talent aside, it's just kind of sometimes they're just kind of experimenting. You can't do that in this league. So that alone, I don't know if you can correct, and it drives me nuts. But I hear you like Drew Lock.
Well, it's not a matter. Look, there's concerns with Drew Lock. There's no question. It's not a matter of sitting here saying, boy, I love Drew Lock. The tape tells me whether I like a player or not. And there's something there. You're right. There's a certain casualness to his game. There's a mechanical issue with his lower body. He opens up and steps into the bucket an awful lot. He falls away from throws. Sometimes he drifts. And all that does make him look like he's playing with a certain lackadaisical feel. And then you do get into the decision-making, which comes down to game situations, understanding when you can make a certain throw and when you can't, understanding when a receiver's open and when he's not open based on the defense. So all these things, can they be taught and learned? They can. There's no guarantee that it will happen over time. So I don't disagree with you at all. But I watch him and I say to myself, God, there's something there. I don't know if it will come out.
Yeah. So there's a game this weekend. If the playoffs started today, Seattle would go to Washington and play the Washington football team, and they're going to play this weekend. And it's an interesting matchup because the strength of Washington could be the weakness of Seattle. Their offensive line, when it gets overwhelmed and they can't run. So when you look at the Washington-Seattle matchup, obviously Seattle should win. They're at a different stage in their organizational structure. They're a championship team. Washington's rebuilding. What will Washington do to Seattle's O-line? What will it look like in your opinion?
Well, we all talk about Washington's D-line, and it's really, really good. But they've become really efficient with some blitz concepts as the year has progressed. And if you look at Russell Wilson, you can go back to last year. He was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL last year, and about 60% of them came versus blitz. This year, more than half of his sacks have come versus blitz. So I look at that in this game because I think what you're going to see is Washington be selective but creative with their pressures. They've now started to use Cole Holcomb. They use Cameron Curl, the safety number 31, who since he's replaced Landon Collins, quite honestly, Colin, the tape tells you that he's a more versatile and better player than Landon Collins, and he's helped that defense, I think, take a step up.
Yeah, right now they'd win the division. Okay, I had my doubts about Lamar Jackson. I did. But in the last year, I find myself defending him a lot. And I said this, maybe I said it to you last week, but when somebody's great at something, I accept the fact Shaq couldn't hit free throws, but he was so powerful, I will live with his limitations. And I keep hearing about Lamar can't do this. But I watched him against the Colts in the second half, 10 for 10. I watched him against Cleveland late. He does make certain throws Kaepernick didn't have touch. He appears to at times have nice touch. Is there anything about him throwing that is getting better or you feel okay about?
He's struggling a bit right now throwing the football, and I think there's a number of reasons. Number one, there's a lot of unnecessary movement within the pocket. He's starting now to create his own pressure. He moves into pressure. Now, he can get out of that pressure because he's so gifted as an athlete, and so therefore you don't really think about it because he then makes a play. So the question is the balance, and this will be a discussion we're going to have with a lot of quarterbacks in these next number of years that come out of college, Colin, is the idea of how good a thrower from the pocket do you have to be if you have tremendous movement ability? Because right now, Lamar Jackson's not playing very well from the pocket, but he has tremendous movement ability, and their run game keeps expanding. They were a big zone read run team. Now they've added the counter gap scheme run game to it. So they do so much with the run game, and he can move extremely well. But if you're just talking about throwing the ball from the pocket and all that goes into that, right now, he's not real good at that.
Okay. Jalen Hurts, I thought, added a juice to Philadelphia, and I said this: the Saints. You could tell the way the Saints played in the first half. They didn't know what to get. They were reacting to everything. They weren't hyper aggressive. They didn't know what they were going to get. What did the tape tell you on Jalen Hurts of Philadelphia?
Well, you have to start with the poise and composure. That was very evident. Look, this kid's played at the highest level of college football and played well, so he has great poise and composure. But from a tactical standpoint, what the Eagles did was absolutely the right thing. They played to his strengths. There was motion. There was design quarterback runs. There was quick game, including screens. There was RPO concepts. There was getting him outside the pocket on designed boots. What they were doing was playing to his strengths, Colin, and limiting his decision making. Because at this point in his career, he's not quite ready for that. So they did absolutely the right thing, and the game allowed them to stay with that. As I was watching that tape and got into the third and early fourth quarter, I said to myself, I wonder what plan B would have been if the game was different. If all of a sudden they were down 24-13 late in the third quarter. But they never had to go to a plan B.
Yeah, well said. So, I watched the Giants-Arizona game, and, typical Giants rebuilding team, played great in Seattle, come home, they're flat. But what I really watched is a Giants defense, which is more than capable, struggle more than a half dozen times with Kyler's movement. And I think to myself, okay, I like him to move, and there's clearly data that shows Arizona's more capable when they move. When you look at the film of the Cardinals, are they too reliant on his third down scrambles to move the sticks?
Well, it's the Lamar Jackson discussion to some degree. Murray's a better thrower than Lamar Jackson, but Murray's also shorter, and Murray's a splash player as well. His legs will always present a problem, both by design and when he drops back, so you do have to account for that, and he makes big plays that way, and that compensates at times and camouflages for the fact that he's been inconsistent as a passer this year. But that's the kind of player he is. He's an individual player at this point, but he has very good throwing ability, and you would expect as he plays more that will come out with more consistency.
When I was growing up, watching football when I was younger, there were very few dynamic tight ends. I go back to Dave Casper of the Raiders. Then after him, it was maybe an Ozzie Newsome or a Kellen Winslow. Now, I look around the league and I look at Travis Kelce and I think, I don't know who figures that out. That is, it's like Gronk with speed. When you look at him on film, is a matchup issue? Is there a bigger headache in the league?
That's a great point, Colin. I'll tell you why. Because as we know that Hill's fast, we know they have speed, but we know in the NFL who matches up to wide receivers, corners. The question becomes when you play a team that has a great tight end, who matches up to the tight end? And the Saints, who they play this week, they tend to play a lot of man coverage. Now, whether they will or not, we don't know. But if they play man, then who are you thinking is going to match up? Normally, it's Malcolm Jenkins. I don't know if that's a good matchup. I don't know if there is a good matchup at the safety position on Travis Kelce. So he is really a big problem. And you could make the argument that he's the key to that passing game, even though Hill obviously can blow the top off the coverage and score. big plays, Kelsey is the guy who's really difficult to defend.
Well, it's same with Kyle Shanahan. Even though he's the run master, I think Kittle is a nightmare. Yeah. He's just and it's so funny. There's certain things we see in sports. We know in baseball now, bullpens are given so much more value than they were in the 70s, 80s. The tight end, what's happening with the tight end is some of these guys are like basketball players, and they're not quite good enough to play professional basketball, but they're 6'6". Tony Gonzalez is a great example. I said, why did you choose football? He's like, because I could be a pro football player. I couldn't be a pro basketball player. They're just physical nightmares. There's nobody that's big enough or fast enough in that secondary that can cover them. So it's
that's an issue. And now we see how tight ends are used in the league now, where they're split out all the time, and they very often they line up as the single receiver to the short side of the field on the back side of trips, 3 receivers to the field side, and they're really difficult to handle in those situations.
All right, let's talk Aaron Rodgers. I would give him the MVP today. He is on fire. He is playing with a lot of leads. I do think Green Bay is built to play with a lead, not trailing.
I would agree.
Yeah, so there's a certain, but the good news is they generally do lead. I think, Jared Goff.
Well, he's responsible for a lot of those leads, Colin.
So here's your play of the week. Let's talk Aaron.
Yeah, well, Rodgers, to me, the thing that stands out to me watching him on tape this year is he's playing so much more within the structure and design of the offense. You just don't see as many plays where he runs around. And whatever the reason for that, it doesn't matter. The fact is that offense has a real timing and rhythm to it now, and he's playing really beautiful football. And I want to go to the touchdown he threw last week that ended the first possession. So let's take a look at it to Davante Adams, because this play, to me, so typical of Aaron Rodgers. It seems so simple, but it's just so good by Rodgers. And again, it was a shorter throw and a long run, but what you have here is a 2-by-2 set, and Davante Adams is the number 1 receiver to the boundary side of the formation. And what you're going to get here with the Lions is they play cover 1. It's a man coverage concept, and they match up across the board. Now, obviously, the matchup that we do want to look at is Adams versus Ryen, the corner, and he's in press man coverage. And this is so easy for Aaron Rodgers, and we've seen this so many times. Why is this easy? Because what does he see right now? He sees the back of the corner. He knows that the corner cannot see the thrown ball. So he's going to throw it. And Adams knows this too, by the way. So Adams knows to slow down to make the catch. And it just looks so easy. But those kinds of things are not quite as easy as they look. And that leads to the run after catch and the touchdown.
By the way, I'm going to give you an assignment in the offseason. Because I believe the first quarterback ever to throw a back shoulder fade like that was Rodgers about 10 years ago. That I started noticing.
That is actually not true. It happened a long time ago, and I can't remember the name of the player, but it was not in the NFL, and I will find that out for you.
That's what you call a student right there. He was always my mentor. Now he's my student. He's going to find it, track it down on Google. All right, Greg, good seeing you.
Thanks, Colin.
We should do a game. So Ryen Russillo said Aaron Rodgers called him years ago and said, what's with that guy? That guy doesn't like you. We need to do a game on this show. And you asked me 10 Aaron Rodgers questions. I argue that here's what's happened, is that local media, when I was growing up as a kid, local media could be critical of local athletes.
Right.
But local media is different now. It's struggling. The local news ratings are, a quarter of what they were 15, 20 years ago. And so you got to play nice to get the car dealer, to get the you just have to play nicer. You can't. I used to do commentaries ripping UNLV when I was in Vegas with Park. And it was like, it was accepted. You have to play nice now in the local media to get the advertisers who have turned to other forms of digital and moved off local newspapers, local TV stations. It's my theory on it. So you got to play a little nice. And so all Packer fans hear is nice, nice, nice. So when a guy like me occasionally points out an Aaron Rodgers criticism, it's, oh my God, I can't believe. I'd vote him MVP. I like him better than Favre, one of the 12 best quarterbacks I've ever seen. Do I think he's coy, condescending, aloof, and sometimes not easy to deal with? Yeah, I've got a lot of proof. I like Aaron Rodgers. I think I would tell this to his face. I would say sometimes you're a little much. I would tell LeBron, you're a little coy sometimes. But I will say this, LeBron and Aaron Rodgers, you ask them to talk, and they always talk. They don't duck the media. LeBron James walks off the court every game.
Of course.
And he goes right to the reporter. every single time. Michael did it. Magic did it. LeBron did it. Brady mostly does it. Mahomes does it. So as a member of the media, Aaron is always available. So I should bake that into my thoughts when he has a comment that comes off as coy. At least he's talking. He doesn't like me. He's not talking to me. But he is, in fairness, when you're a top 2 or 3 player in a sport, I mean, it's hard to get any of these baseball players to talk. The baseball guys in the media, it's always bristly and prickly.
Aaron, you're welcome on the show anytime.
No. You can come on the show. You don't have to like me. Westbrook is always welcome. I've had Baker. I bring Baker on tomorrow. I don't care if you don't like. You could yell at me. I get yelled at all the time at home. It doesn't. I got kids. I don't care if you yell. You're not going to eat me. We're both going to live. I like it, but I think I'm seen as anti-Aaron. No, I am the guy. My success is largely based on, even when you didn't work with me, I'm the guy that'll say stuff about people that's kind of uncomfortable. Aaron, I said it 5 years ago. He's arrogant. I don't love all the leadership and body language stuff. It's not. And by the way, now people are acknowledging it's kind of part of his fabric, which is fine. But you got to admit it. You got to be honest about it, right?
I mean, I think it's okay to have a different personality.
Okay, so
the same.
There you go. That's fine. I think Big Ben tends to be a little dramatic.
He's definitely dramatic.
Okay.
And he's being under-dramatic when saying that this is not time to panic. This is time to panic.
Sometimes I think Brady is too political and too corporate. And golly gee, it was a bad game. I like Tom lighten
Well,
up a
also,
little.
I think, what tends to happen is we spend so much time with these guys. Like, we've had Aaron Rodgers for so long. We've had Brady for so long. We've had Ben for so long that their personalities just eventually come across. Like, we feel like we get to know them. And in some ways we do. Like, we have been following their careers for decades. So we just make other observations. That's how much we talk about you. Because you're that good.
Yeah, and he does talk. Let's be fair. I'll be fair. LeBron and Aaron are on this show a lot. They are always willing to answer tough questions. Aaron has never, outside of me, never ducked an interview in his life. He is always there. Good game, bad game. Aaron always talks. Much respect for that. All right, commercial time.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right.
Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available now at stuffyoushouldknow.com and everywhere you buy books.
Now that is true.
Do you ever think about how you're gonna die? I think I'm going to choke to death, specifically on a Cool Ranch Dorito.
I'm definitely slipping in the shower. I'm for sure gonna die taking a selfie. Anyway,
Hey, I'm Gabby,
I'm Taylor. I'm Nika.
and we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just 3 fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
And how you shouldn't trust your ex-boyfriend to help you get rid of a body.
We'll also find out about all of Nika's boyfriends.
That is untrue, and we will find out that Taylor's a horse girl. And Gabby is...
The best one.
Okay, Gabby. Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex in the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death. We'll also learn how to grow as people through the power of friendship.
So listen to Cadaver Gals for your weekly dose of chaos.
Cadaver Gals is a production of School of Humans and iHeartRadio. New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Friday night, it's the Pac-12 Championship as Oregon takes on number 13 USC. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Then on Saturday, 4th-ranked Ohio State looks to secure a spot in the college football playoff against number 14 Northwestern in the Big Ten Championship at noon Eastern. Both games are available only on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
sat on recruiting websites for 4 hours yesterday. USC is the strangest team. I watch them every game, and they drive me nuts, and they play poorly, and then they just have such a good quarterback and wide receivers in the Pac-12. That's good enough to win the conference.
I'm excited for that Friday night game.
Let me tell you something. USC has got their issues, but their wide receiver and quarterback talent and tight end talent, they got dudes. They got NFL guys, so they can't control their timeouts. They have too many penalties.
That UCLA game was so fun.
Oh, it was just an incredible game to watch. They really are. They remind me of that Loyola basketball program. Remember with Paul Westhead? That was like 20 years ago. That they went into the tournament. They were scoring 120 points to the college team. That's USC. Every game's a shootout. Every game's wild, and you just hope you don't let USC have the ball last because they have the ability to score really fast with their wide receivers. I don't know who I like in that game, to be honest with you. Joy Taylor with the news.
Herd on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Big NBA news this week about Giannis deciding to take his Supermax deal and stay in Milwaukee. And he said showing his loyalty to the team that gave him a chance in the NBA was a big factor in his decision.
Loyalty.
I'm a man of my words. And, this is big. This is big. I think, being in a team that trusted me, believed in me, took care of me, took care of my family, took care of me financially, I always want to give back. And I've been trying to give back since day one that I've been here. But I got more to give.
Now, can I just say this to defend players that leave? Players don't go to a team and can leave a year later, or 2, 3, or 4. The league has set up a situation through the CBA where they almost never leave for 7 years because there's too much money. So when players do leave, it's after 7 years. If you can't get a Giannis, a second-grade player in 7 years, or a LeBron in Cleveland, don't burn jerseys when they leave. Even if he would have left, he's given you half his career. He's going to play 14 years. So whenever guys leave, I'm like, LeBron is ridiculous because he's going to play till he's 60. But by and large, the average NBA star plays 12 to 15 years. You can get out of your contract, but you give up tens of millions of dollars. And most people in life that play basketball or football or baseball aren't millionaires when they get into a sport. So if he would have left, my takeaway would have been, you didn't get him a second-rate player in 7 years. That is on Milwaukee. Now, they have done a good job to get Drew Holiday, and we both love that move.
I do love that move. I agree with you. I mean, listen, I try to keep things in perspective, and when I talk, I do talk from a place of, I try to put myself in that position.
Yeah,
what would I do in that situation? What would I want my family to do in that situation? Based off of my personal experiences. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Most people from Pittsburgh do not leave Pittsburgh. Stay in Pittsburgh.
That's right.
Their family is from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They stay on the same block. That's the mentality and the environment, and people are comfortable and live happy lives and raise their families. It's a great place to raise your family.
Boring, but yeah.
I know people that have left that come back to raise their family there. Yes, but I'm not wired that way, and I never have been. So I can't judge people for staying in places where they feel comfortable. And to your point, that's a lot of money to walk away from in the name of legacy or in pursuit of a better situation to win a championship.
The other thing I'll always defend players who do leave, they almost all do it to win a title and give up money. It's not like baseball where Robinson Cano went from the Yankees to the Mariners for a check, and an hour in he's like, get me out of here. I don't like losing games. NBA guys are the only sport. They're like,
give up money.
Oh, I'm going to give you a bunch of money back. And it's not like Giannis a big shoe line. I'm sure he's got one, but it's not moving the product like a LeBron or a Steph or whatever. So if he would have left, my takeaway is he gives you half his career. The NBA sets up contracts to make it punitive if you leave before 7 years.
I think it's great that he stayed. I think it's great for Milwaukee, for the fan base. I think it's nice for the NBA that Giannis is there. He's going to stay in the East.
Yes.
I don't like with you the idea that you are not a loyal person because you made a business decision for yourself and your family based off of what makes you happy. I am not a disloyal person because I moved out of Pittsburgh. It's obviously not the same situation. But, I'm saying, you know what I mean? It's just a
very shorter version of Giannis. It's totally
much
the same.
shorter, the notion of loyalty just gets very skewed in these situations, and it's very unfair. So 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Robert Saleh is expected to draw a lot of interest for head coaching jobs next season, and Kyle Shanahan has already prepared for him to leave San Francisco. Shanahan said the two have spoken about that possibility, and he joked that he will not allow Saleh to take anyone else from the staff with him. Some head coaching jobs that are open, Texans, Lions, and the Falcons.
Now, the Texans' job would be interesting because their defense needs help, and he has a star quarterback. That's a good fit for him.
I do like him with the Texans. I don't love him with the Lions.
No, it's too much. There's too much chaos for an unproven coach to overcome.
I just don't think that's it. Like, I just don't think it would be a good fit for him or for the Lions. Like, I think he would excel better with the Texans or even with the Falcons. And we also obviously
by the way, Atlanta, I do think solid, capable ownership, veteran quarterback. Atlanta's a good fit for him.
Atlanta's a good fit. I would want him to bring in a very experienced offensive coordinator.
Agreed.
So the other jobs that may be open are obviously the Jets and Chargers. The Jets is going to be open. Not sure what the Chargers are going to do, but we're assuming they're going to move out from Anthony Lynn. The Jaguars and Bears are also some coaching jobs that are, hot seat positions right now. Shanahan previously has prevented assistant coaches to under contract to interview for coordinator jobs elsewhere. He blocked Mike LaFleur from joining his brother's staff in Green Bay in 2019, but obviously that's not the situation here. So the NFL in the offseason approved a rule that eliminates the ability for teams to block assistant coaches from interviewing for coordinator positions. So they're not going to allow people to not be able to move up.
What's interesting here is, I probably don't have a ton of time to elaborate. The difference between a coordinator and a coach is, when you're a coordinator, you have great pride in your defense because if it's great, you'll get a head job. Once you're a head coach, it's about winning the game and nothing else matters. Jimmy Johnson's talked about this a lot. So the question with Saleh, that's why so many offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators don't work. They can't make that pivot to their ego getting in the way of their side of the ball, playing a favorite side of the ball. The key is the coaches. You don't always want to score the most points. Sometimes you want to run the clock out and kill, and the offensive coordinator gets the job.
Your job is to make sure you win the game.
Period. Nothing else matters, and that means your pride and side of the ball sometimes, you do things you would never do as a coordinator of that side.
I also think, to mention what I said earlier, I think that if it's your first time as a head coach, who you pick as your coordinators is so important.
Buffalo.
Sean McVay did an amazing job with that. Like, you want someone who has a lot of experience, who's not trying to take your job or coach the team. You want somebody who's going to support you, but also take care of things that you don't know how to do. Finally, Aaron Rodgers is in a 2-horse race with Patrick Mahomes to win the NFL MVP this season, and he spoke about how important it would be for him to add a third to his career.
Bill, there's not many guys that have won 3, so that would definitely mean a lot. I feel like I've been in a conversation, a number of years outside of the 2 that I've won. We're talking about in 12 when AP went nuts against us in the last game of the year. Had a pretty good year that year. Obviously in 16 we made our run and led the league in passing touchdowns. Didn't really get a sniff for some reason that year, but I definitely felt like I was in the conversation. It's nice to be back in the conversation.
Not going to talk about that.
If you enjoy sarcasm, Aaron Rodgers' answers are just ticklish. I love it. I love it. Him and Mike Tomlin are 2 of my favorite sound bites. They're just great. So Fox Bet has Patrick Mahomes at -225 to win the MVP. Aaron Rodgers +150. Josh Allen +2200.
By the way, he's my second choice today.
Josh Allen?
Rodgers, Josh Allen, Mahomes.
Well, the Packers' remaining schedules: Panthers, Titans, and Bears. So he could put up some pretty tremendous numbers in those 3 games.
Yeah.
The Chiefs' remaining schedules at the Saints, Falcons, and Chargers. I don't know. I think Mahomes is going to get it. I do think that Aaron Rodgers deserves it this year.
Yes, he's absolutely more
also,
valuable.
That's the point. And it's no knock on Mahomes. Obviously, Mahomes is having an MVP season. So it wouldn't be a shock, or it wouldn't be a diss to Aaron Rodgers if he did win it. I just think that I think that if Aaron Rodgers wasn't playing, the Packers would lose every game with him not out there. I think the Chiefs could hold on for a game or 2.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Reid.
And maybe that's not the measurement of what an MVP is, but
Andy Reid would coach them to 7 wins with a backup. I really believe that. That's how much. Now, you go from 7 to 12 to 13.
Of course.
But yeah, enjoy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Tom Brady, how good is he? worse and why he's actually having a great year.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Do you like fresh out of the oven chocolate chip cookies? Do you love wholesome heteronormative lifestyles? And do you like pretending that menstrual cycles just don't exist? Then you'll hate Tampon Rock. Tampon Rock is a scripted comedy podcast, kind of like Friends, except gay and with black people. So, actually, really not like Friends.
Right. But it is about friends. They have a band, they live in Oakland. Also, it's a musical, but not a musical like you're thinking of.
Chicago.
Shout out.
And what I love is that these songs in Tampon Rock typically set up the next
You know
scene.
what? Why don't we just show them?
Roll the clip. The roof is filled with lesbians.
She got a period. So there you have it.
A little tease, if you please.
Listen and follow Tampon Rock on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey there, it's Ryen. You know, these days it's pretty easy to feel way too overwhelmed and disconnected, not only from each other but ourselves. My new podcast, Holy Human, focuses on living our best, fullest lives by expanding into our most complete and whole selves. I'd love you to join me as I sit down with people who I've found to be some of the world's most inspiring and enlightening motivators, healers, and wise souls. Together, we'll make more sense of this crazy existence we all share, ourselves and each other. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Ryen, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Fox Super 6 is giving away over $3 million. Download the free Fox Super 6 app and make your picks before kickoff Sunday for your shot to win. All you have to do is correctly predict the outcome of 6 NFL games. And for top stories, scores, and more, go to the Fox Sports app. Lions Titans is featured in Sunday's contest. Colin, give us your winner and final score.
Who is it, Lions who?
Lions Titans.
Titans 30. Titans are such an odd team. This is a pretty good matchup for them. Titans 32, Lions 26. I don't even know what that's Titans are a hard team for me to bet. I bet I think Cleveland matches up so well with the Titans. They're gonna if the playoffs started today, Cleveland would face the Titans again, and I would like Cleveland. Again today. If the playoffs started today, the Rams would play the Buccaneers again, and the Rams would beat the Buccaneers. There are times where I think, for instance, New Orleans plays Kansas City, and Kansas City probably wins this weekend because of Taysom Hill playing, not Drew Brees. But if they met again, big advantage New Orleans, which has already gotten a look at the offense from Andy Reid, and then they got to unveil the Drew Brees offense to Kansas City. So there have been times where I think that first win over a team is a big disadvantage. But I think the Rams match up really well with Tampa because you can put Jalen Ramsey on Mike Evans and really end that top wide receiving threat. And the strength of the Bucs is their wide receiving core, and the strength of the Rams is their secondary. So it's strength on strength, good matchup. But I think Cleveland just matches up really well. No pass rush. Baker's going to have time to throw. Baker is like a lot of young quarterbacks, Goff being one. When they're comfortable, watch out.
Yeah.
Discomfort, they go into the weeds. They come off the rails really fast. By the way, Bruce Arians was talking about Tom Brady. You know, Arians has taken a couple shots. Brady tends to be very political. He doesn't fire back. Arians talking about Tom last week and Tom Brady in general.
I don't know why anybody's criticizing Tom. I mean, what he did at the end of the half and to start the second half is very, very pure team to score 17 points in a matter of 5 or 6 minutes. No matter if we don't make a first down on this first 2 third downs, I don't care if we finish the half with 17 points. I don't care how we start. So I mean, yeah, he's not getting enough credit for what he's doing.
So I can't compare Tom Brady at 43 to Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen in their early 20s. But I can compare Tom Brady at 43 to Tom Brady at 42. So let's go to last year. Everybody moves to Florida for 2 reasons: taxes and to extend your life. Tom moved there for taxes and to extend his Super Bowl window, which, by the way, he wouldn't be in New England. He is absolutely in now. So just go look at last year's stats. So last year, Brady completed 60% of his throws. This year, significantly higher, 64. He's having a much better year as he ages. Remember, you're supposed to get worse at 43. So passer rating. Last year, Tommy's passer rating was 88 for the New England Patriots. This year, Brady's passer rating is 96. So again, as he's aged, significantly better. Passing yards per game, up 20 yards. Passer rating higher. Touchdowns, 6 more already, 3 games left. He's also been sacked less as a Buccaneer than as a Patriot. So, I mean, look at, so completion percentage, passing touchdowns, yards per game, passer rating, passing yards per attempt, and sacks. So again, 43-year-old Brady is much better than 42-year-old Brady. And that's why I left. That's exactly why I left. I still want to be in the Super Bowl window, check, and I want to be better because at this point I need more help. Check, check. He's now, again, this is not Josh Allen. It's not Mahomes. It's not Rodgers. At this point in his career, he's not LeBron. He's not like not declining. There is a little lack of the ability to throw a deep ball. He's never been super athletic. He's less so now. But compared to Tom last year, this is why I left. It's really for Tom. Maybe our perceptions of it are not as grand, but for Tom, it's been an absolute home run.
I think it just doesn't look like Tom Brady. And it's because it's the Bucs and it's not Patriots. Like, we're used to it being death by a million cuts. We're used to it being very buttoned up, and it's a little more loose. It's just a different looking team, and we're associating Tom Brady with that.
Okay, so let's say this was LeBron in 2 years, and you were starting to see a decline. And all of a sudden, Mike D'Antoni was his coach, who's very much about shooting threes and guards. And you would watch LeBron, and he would still be averaging 24, 25 points. But the offense was really geared solely to shoot threes. And LeBron's game is much greater than that. So it would be like looking at LeBron and going, it doesn't look right, but if you looked at the numbers, you'd be like, oh my God, he's better than he was the year before. He's scoring more points. Yeah, this system is not built for Tom.
It's a different aesthetic.
It was built for Carson Palmer at 28. Big arm, shots downfield, little more athletic, can sit in the pocket, bigger guy can take hits. It's not built for Tom. But if you're asking, did you hear his comment this week? Do we have the comment, him talking about yeah, Bingham to New York just got 40 inches of snow yesterday, not joking. Brady talking about, and this has to be considered. His wife's happier, he's happier with the weather in Tampa.
It's amazing, just to be at this point in the season and then to still be outside practicing today turned into a beautiful day. And I know we have a warm one coming up on Sunday. But I've loved just being outside every day. And I think being a native Floridian, I was a native Californian for a long time in my life. And went away from it for about 25 years. And you won't catch me dead living in the Northeast.
I know what he's feeling. I put up with 10 years of it. And by the way, the people are wonderful. They're hardy. They're tougher in the Northeast than me. I totally get it. But man, it's not, when you grow up in warm weather, you can handle the cold. It's when you grow up in warmer weather, you go to the cold, move back to the warm, you will never move back. 40 inches in Binghamton. Think about this. The Rocky Mountains don't get 40. I go to Utah a lot to ski. We're getting like 3 inches a day. 40 inches, not even in a mountain range.
I am not built for that.
I'm not either. But I was fine when I was in it.
Yeah, and I grew up in it.
I was fine. I like Connecticut. It was fun. Prep schools, and it was just it's Hogwarts.
It's not so much the snow. It looks pretty now.
It just looks pretty from a distance.
Posting pictures. It's pretty.
Yeah. mdrivestart.com. A scoop every morning. A supplement every morning. mdrivestart.com. Refine your prime with mDrive. Hour 3 next.
Are you ready for best life minus the burnout? I'm Zuri Hall from NBC's Access Hollywood, and my new podcast, Hot Happy Mess, is all about the most important VIP. You're the star of your life, so own it. as we discuss relationships, self-care, career, and much more. Our podcast is for mindful, ambitious, diverse millennial women who are ready for more happiness, laughter, peace, and purpose now. Listen to Hot Happy Mess every week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Bowen Yang here, and if you're as excited as I am about the upcoming 4th season of Search Party on HBO Max, then you'll want to tune in to Search Party, the podcast. In each episode, I go behind the scenes with the writers and actors of the disturbingly dark comedy and chat favorite moments and scenes with special guest celebrity fans. Search Party Season 4 comes to HBO Max on January 14th, with Seasons 1 through 3 available now. Meanwhile, subscribe and listen to Search Party, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Contact World is a technology and media company dedicated to improving public health, and our podcast is our opportunity to dive into hot topics that are relevant to you, from contact tracing to vaccines to social and racial justice. We may not have all the answers, but you deserve to know what goes on in your neighborhood and the decisions that affect you and your family's health. I'm Justin Beck. Join me and my co-host, Catherine and Deep D, as we seek truth in health. Listen to Contact World, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You've probably heard a lot about Portland on the news, about the tear gas and the federal agents with snatch vans and the anarchy. What you probably haven't heard is the truth, because the reality of what happened in Portland is so much stranger, so much more incredible than what the mainstream media was willing to show. I'm Robert Evans, and along with all of the other voices on my podcast, Uprising, A Guide from Portland, I was there. Listen to Uprising, A Guide from Portland, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
New streaming service comes next year called Discovery Plus. Exclusive originals, some of your favorite brands like HDTV. I used to be addicted to HDTV. And then you got then there's just more options. I started watching something last night, real life drama about I can't get into it. It's so good. I love true crime. I can watch.
You watch a lot of really dark stuff.
I do.
I can't do that.
That's all
the
I
world
watch.
is dark enough. I just want to sit down and watch like Schitt's Creek or The Office or something like.
You're like Anne. She likes joyful, uplifting stuff.
Yeah, because my mind is already too dark on a consistent basis. I need just a little escape.
Oh, seriously, everything I watch it has a terrible ending.
Watch the darkest stuff.
It's amazing I come to work in a good mood. I just watch mayhem all the time. Greg Jennings, 10 years in the NFL, a Super Bowl Pro Bowler as well, is joining me live. So it's no secret that Aaron Rodgers has it out for me. I'm a big enough man to handle it. But I will say this. I would give him the MVP. I don't think it's particularly close. And my theory is the media butchers this award. It's most valuable. Okay, Andy Reid is such a brilliant, and it's nothing against Matt LaFleur. I believe Andy could go 6-10 or 7-9 with this roster. I think Green Bay's a 4-win team without Aaron. So, to me, Aaron is absolutely, this is the LeBron argument. So I don't care about Westbrook's stats. Valuable? LeBron and Aaron Rodgers. So, your thought about Aaron's year and the award itself and if he deserves it?
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything you just said. And that's been my argument all along is the pieces and the personnel that surrounds both of these candidates. When you look at Patrick Mahomes, you have so many skill guys around him. You have two of the top 5 leading receivers in all of football, and the tight end Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill on his roster, and we haven't even gone beyond them yet. And you look at the others, they're just so much better than what the Green Bay Packers have surrounded Aaron Rodgers with. And now you bring up the head coaches who are both offensive play callers. I understand Bieniemy and what he does, but let's be real. Andy Reid is the mind behind a lot of that, and so is Matt LaFleur. And when you pull these two coaches away from these guys, it's like, okay, yes, can they still success with who was ever backing them up. You look at Alex Smith and the success Andy Reid was able to have before Pat Mahomes ever took over. Like, they were already built for this. And so Aaron Rodgers, he even said it, when you take the acronym of MVP, you remove Aaron Rodgers from this Green Bay Packers team, we are not talking about them. They are not making the playoffs. This is no slight on Matt LaFleur, but what they have built is tailor-made for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, and he has grown accustomed to taking and bearing on that weight and allowing them to still have successful seasons.
People pay a lot of attention, and I think this is probably the right thing to do, but we tend to give the Packers or the Saints or the Patriots with Brady or the Steelers a benefit of the doubt if late in the year they play a bad game or things aren't clicking, because we trust the structure, kind of the formidable kind of architecture of the organization. But I don't think Pittsburgh, that offense is not a playoff offense. They can't run. They're awful on third down. They don't throw it deep. It is so it's not efficient and it's not dynamic. So I do think the one playoff team I look at and I think I would panic a little is Pittsburgh. But you played for a team in Green Bay. And go back to your career. Was there a year that you unraveled a little late and you deep down knew it, but there's a sense that you were the Packers and you were okay? Your own career. Because I look at Pittsburgh today, and I think the only reason we're not saying this team's not very good is because of the brand, the Steelers.
Yeah, it was the year we went 15-1. The year following the Super Bowl, we were on a great run up until we ran into the Kansas City Chiefs, a game we should have won, and we lost. And then after that, things just started to unravel. You start to see a little bit more of the flaws that we had that we were overcoming early, and we still overcame. But we knew going into the playoffs, if we weren't able to fix or rid ourselves of them, they would become our Achilles heel. And it was. The New York Giants beat us because we weren't sound offensively on all running the football and throwing the football, and then specifically defensively, we were not able to stop other opponents from making the big plays. But when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is why I don't panic for them. When you look at them, the way that they are built, they create so many turnovers and get the ball back to that offense that can score points. They just do it differently. And they can put up a scare to a defense, but they do it differently. They don't do it the old traditional Pittsburgh Steelers way, and I think that's what's kind of alarming to so many of us. And we're not saying Ben Roethlisberger throw for 300-400 yards a game, and the receivers, they have dropped so many balls. But if you don't rid yourself of those ailing things, those drops, those unsustained drives, getting the ball in the end zone, when you have goal to go, when you're in the red zone, you are going to falter in the playoffs. However, I like this team because they possess the ball, they play keep away, and then they have a defense that can get after the quarterback and apply pressure, not just sack the quarterback, but get after him with pressure, and they can get the ball back into the hands of their offense to give them more opportunities.
So an interesting team is, and this happens every year, there's these teams that go into the playoffs, the Green Bays, we know who they are, the teams that are there. We're going to see Rams over the next 5 years, mostly the playoff team. And then you get these teams that have a bad history, like a Cleveland Brown, but they right the ship, at least momentarily. And then you get to the playoffs, and you see this in the NBA, and you see it in the NFL. Playoff football is just different. And I imagine over the course of your career, when Green Bay went to the playoffs, you often had a bye, or you'd play a lower-seeded playoff team, and they were a little bit of an upstart. This was new territory for them. And I feel that with Cleveland. Like, they're going to end up playing like a Baltimore or somebody, and they're just going to be a little over their skis. Go back to your career. Can you see it in the eyes when you would face that upstart team, and that they may have puffed their chest, but deep down late in games, you could sense they'd not been here before, and they weren't terribly comfortable in that space.
Yeah, in the Cleveland Browns, they fit that description. I like so much about the Cleveland Browns, but understanding how this game works, it looks really good in the regular season up until you get into the postseason, because all things that you've done earlier in the regular season count for nothing. Teams scheme you differently. The intensity level intensifies. All of these things come into play that a team who has not been there in decades, they have no experience, including their coaching staff. Like, they don't have that experience. I mean, Kevin Stefanski, I understand he was with the Vikings, so he's been around it. He understands it, but he hasn't gotten to where they wanted to be. And when you look at a team like this, it's those reps. It's that experience, Colin, that gives you that confidence to say this Cleveland Browns team can make some hay in the postseason. I like them because their quarterback, Baker Mayfield, is playing better down the stretch. And he's a wild card. If he plays great, this team can make some hay. If he does not, then it's all for naught.
Bears, Vikings, you're calling the game, so I'm not going to ask you for a prediction. Obviously, I'm just like you're the analyst for the game. But I will say this. The Vikings have been a team I've in my blazing 5 picks, I've just stayed away all year. I can't quite get a beat on them. They lose to the Cowboys, but then you watch them against Tampa, and if they had a kicker, they would have won that game. I mean, Tampa off a bye if they could hit field goals. So you live in Minneapolis, you read everything about them, you drive around, they're talking Vikings on talk radio. Give me a beat on them. What are they, and what are they not?
Well, I mean, the record speaks for itself. They are a team that is on the fence. All year long, I've kind of been in the same mindset about the Vikings as you. I haven't been able to put my finger or place my finger on what is it about this team that they haven't been able to be successful this year. Understanding that they're young in the secondary, young in the back half, and they don't have, Danielle Hunter up front applying the pressure and all of those things. But Mike Zimmer has always showed the resolve to get that defense to be one of the top 10 defenses in all of football. That has not been the case. That is where they have hung their hats and made their hay, and they haven't been as great defensively all year. They have made stints where they've been great. Offensively, they've been on a roller coaster. With the exception of after these last 3 weeks, after their bye, Kirk Cousins has been really, really good. He's played winning football, and that's what has them in the position that they're in. However, when you are one way and teams see that, they approach you differently. They feel like, I can punch you in the mouth, and we'll see how you respond. Will you even respond? And what we saw against Tampa Bay, this was a team that went down and punched Tampa Bay in the mouth. But then special teams, another phase that is forever so important in the waning moments of the regular season, is definitely in the playoffs when you look at the Vikings history, and it cost them. And so you have to be great in all 3 phases. You have to be solid in the Vikings. They just haven't been collectively putting that complete game together all year.
Yeah, no, I thought they outplayed Tampa for long. First, certainly early in the game, and the special teams, Dan Bailey cost them. Greg Jennings, 10 years in the NFL, Super Bowl, Pro Bowl. Good seeing you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, certain teams, I feel this. I just don't have a beat on. Minnesota. I'll tell you another team is I think I've once or twice this year I've taken them is the Colts. I loved them against Green Bay. I thought I had a bad week that week. Blazing 5. That was my only winning game. But the Colts, to me, I'm not quite sure what I get week to week. And the Vikings, I'm not sure. That you go back and look at that Minnesota-Tampa Bay game. You hit your field goals. I think Minnesota wins that game. That's why it was so kind of discouraging if you were a Bucs fan. It was a win, but it felt so hollow. They got so many emotional breaks and special teams breaks. When a team misses a gimme field goal, you can just see it suck the life out of a football team.
Hey there, it's Ryen. These days it's pretty easy to feel way too overwhelmed and disconnected, not only from each other but ourselves. My new podcast, Holy Human, focuses on living our best, fullest lives by expanding into our most complete and whole selves. I'd love you to join me as I sit down with people who I've found to be some of the world's most inspiring and enlightening motivators, healers, and wise souls. Together, we'll make more sense of this crazy existence we all share, ourselves and each other. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Ryen, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff you should know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right.
Well, the love life part maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, available now at stuffyoushouldknow.com and everywhere you buy books.
Now that is true.
Go with the news.
Heard on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Speaking of those Colts, they gave it to the Raiders last week, and now the Raiders need a win over the Chargers tonight to keep themselves in the AFC playoff race.
Love this.
They basically need to win out. This is the second time Vegas is facing Justin Herbert, and John Gruden has high praise for the rookie. He's everything you're looking for. Facing tough moments, he's been hit, he's been behind, lost games in the last second. He's come back every single week, comes back strong. I think he's a superstar in waiting.
He makes it look, Justin Herbert, the first giveaway is good. Great players make it look easy. Watch his throwing motion. That one he airs it out, but you'll see some of these throws. He moves well.
I think you could see it the first week with Herbert.
He just
right
against
away.
Kansas City. Just his movement is easy. God, he's got an arm. Lord, he's got an arm.
He's very fun to watch. He has 25 touchdown passes this season, so he needs 3 more to break Baker Mayfield's rookie touchdown record of 27. Herbert, in his first game against the Raiders, was 28 and 42, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions, but the Chargers lost 31-26. The game-winning touchdown was overturned on review. If you remember, the Raiders defense, they fired their defensive coordinator, Paul Gunther, this week.
Yeah.
Rod Marinelli will finish out the season. They're not doing well. They're allowing the 3rd most points per game, 8th most yards per game, 8th most passing yards per game, and they are tied for the 2nd fewest sacks. They have no pass rush. Only 15 sacks so far this season.
They traded Khalil Mack. They haven't had a pass rush since, but they used those picks to hit some home runs. So they are predictably weak with pass rush, and to their credit, they have a lot of really good offensive players, and they're not paying most of them anything. So the trade gave them what they wanted. Gruden's an offensive coach. He had a quarterback. He wanted to elevate the offense. He did. That's his side of the ball. But you give up Khalil Mack, and 2 years, 3 years later, you don't have a pass rush still.
I feel like we got a little bit excited about the Raiders.
Oh, I did last 2 years I have. I think I like the brand more than the team. I think I like Vegas.
It's very possible. You know what's funny about these two teams? We don't ever get the Las Vegas Raiders wrong. Every once in a while we'll still slip into San Diego Chargers, but we very easily went to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, I think it feels, it was a perfect city for them.
It's a great fit.
Vegas, what happened in Vegas stays in Vegas, and the Raiders have always been sort of anti-establishment. A lot of these moves in football, I don't get them. That one is a home run.
I just can't wait till they can have fans in that stadium. It's going to be such a different experience playing there. So Baker Mayfield has been playing well recently and has led the Browns to a 9-4 record this season, and he says the confidence the team is gaining from their success is fueling his personal performance.
Playing confidence is where I'm at my best, so trusting these calls, trusting my eyes and going through it, and trusting my guys around me.
Their remaining schedule is at the Giants, at the Jets, and then the Steelers in the last week, which is the game that I'm looking forward to the most.
I think they match up with the Steelers fine.
Well, I think they'll win their next 2, and then we'll be looking forward to a really big Week 17 matchup.
So, you know why so many people that from Cleveland say they hate me, but I see how much they retweet and yell at me. Because deep down, it's hard to hate me because I picked you to beat the Ravens, I picked you to beat the Steelers, I picked you to beat the Titans. I'm fair. If we want to think if I dumped on Cleveland for clicks every day. But the truth is, I think they match up well. I don't think they match up with Kansas City well, and I don't think they match up with Buffalo. Their back seven, especially their back seven's weak. And so Mahomes and Josh Allen, I don't think they actually match up with the Raiders at all. Remember, the Raiders took them apart. The Raiders, they don't have the personnel to stop like a Ruggs or a Waller. They don't. If you have a good quarterback and a line that protects him, they're really vulnerable. But I think they match up with the Titans. I think they match up with Miami okay. I think they're a team that, depending on the matchup, is going to end up winning a playoff game.
Also, Freddie Kitchens will be calling this game because offensive coordinator Jason Garrett has tested positive, so he will miss Sunday night's game against the Browns.
This is in the running for one of my Blazing 5 picks. I have 7 picks, I get down to 5.
Finally, Taysom Hill got the Saints starting job over Jameis Winston when Drew Brees was injured this season, and he's done a good job of the team to a 3-1 record in Brees' absence. But even though Jameis is still the backup right now, Sean Payton said Jameis will get an opportunity to compete for the starting job whenever Drew Brees decides to retire.
All right.
Having looked at how Taysom Hill has played so far, if Drew Brees retired next year, and obviously we haven't seen anything from Jameis yet.
I'd play them both in the preseason and figure it out. I don't think Taysom Hill's a franchise quarterback. I do think Jameis Winston is a lower-end franchise quarterback. So I think we were both surprised when Taysom Hill got the nod. But as we've said before, unique works for a period, and for 4 games, Taysom is a handful. But you're seeing with Taysom in the last 2 weeks, they've scored 21 points. So the output is coming down. So unique works, doesn't always last. I got the Taysom move, but if I went to camp and I'm asking myself, I would split the snaps and see who looks better, and I'd give them each 2 starts in the preseason.
I think the Saints are so interesting going into next year, just depending on what Drew Brees does. I don't. Could you see Drew coming back for another year?
No.
I just can't see it.
No, he's looked shot. In a weird way, the Bridgewater replacement in Taysom is what makes him work. He was so done. Was it the year before last year? He was done by the end of the year.
This injury is just so different than last year. Like this is a lot. He had 11, 12. Broken ribs.
God.
I can't even imagine like fracturing a finger.
Think about that. A broken rib.
No.
Get 11 of them.
No, thank you.
No,
thank you.
Nope.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie
I
News.
hand out my holiday presents for NFL stars and best for last coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
In the summer and autumn of 2020, the city of Portland, Oregon became the center of a vast media blitz. Thousands of viral videos showing marching federal agents and police officers, tear gas, black-clad anarchists, and fires went viral all over the internet. What didn't go viral was the truth, because the story of Portland's Black Lives Matter movement and of the Portland protests of 2020 is so much stranger than I think the mainstream media would ever be willing to cover. I was there, and more importantly, the people that I talked to for my new show, Uprising, A Guide from Portland, were there. Through their experiences, you'll learn the truth, both about Portland and about what's coming for the rest of the United States in the next few years. Listen to Uprising, A Guide from Portland on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Do you ever think about how you're gonna die? I think I'm going to choke to death, specifically on a Cool Ranch Dorito.
I'm definitely slipping in the shower. I'm for sure gonna die taking a selfie. Anyway.
Hey, I'm Gabby.
I'm Taylor. I'm Nika.
And we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just 3 fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
And how you shouldn't trust your ex-boyfriend to help you get rid of a body.
We'll also find out about all of Nika's boyfriends.
That is untrue, and we will find out that Taylor's a horse girl. And Gabby is
the best one.
Okay, Gabby. Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex and the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death. We'll also learn how to grow as people through the power of friendship.
So listen to Cadaver Gals for your weekly dose of chaos.
Cadaver Gals is a production of School of Humans and iHeartRadio. New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, by the way, we will air our special Herd for the holidays, I believe, this week. It airs many times, so you will be exceedingly over, Joy and I, by Tuesday, as next week is Christmas week.
Yeah, it's here.
So we work one day on Tuesday, and then we get some time off.
You do.
Oh, you guys don't? Oh, that's a bummer. So we thought today, some of my, it's Christmas time. I did some shopping a couple days ago. So some of the presents, Joy, I would hand out as we roll toward the end of the NFL season. I'm in a giving mood.
Santa Colin?
Santa Colin. Here we go. I'm going to hand out some presents.
All right. What gift would you give the Steelers wide receiving corps?
I would give them glue sticks for their hands to help with drops. 37 drops this year is the most in the NFL. Here's what's alarming. The only team to have 30-plus drops in the last 2 years. In fact, they've dropped 9.6% of their throws this year. That's a high percentage. The only team to drop 9% or higher in each of the last 2 years. So a glue stick.
What gift would you give Carson Wentz?
A seat cushion, because he's going to be riding the bench if Jalen Hurts' opening performance is any indication. It's not just that he's struggling, that nice picture, but his completion percentage, Joy, is 57%. His passer rating 72. Like, that's worst in the league stuff, and the reality is 19 teams have fewer giveaways. Teams!
You got to hit up LeBron and get one of those cushions he has for the bench.
Bench, yeah.
It's huge. How about Patrick Mahomes? What's he getting?
Not to get ahead of ourselves, but how about a trophy case? FoxBet has him heavily odds-on favorite. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. First of all, you need a trophy case even if you have one. But when you're the favorite to win MVP and the Super Bowl, you got to have... And then, by the way, in about 6 years, you'll need to build a trophy room like Brady did after the Atlanta win.
What gift would you give Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski?
I think best friend necklaces. This is Baker's third coach. And by the way, Baker, look at those beautiful beef friends. Baker's got his career high in wins, his career high in passer rating. Baker's passer rating's 97. That's a high-end passer rating. He's got the best TD interception ratio. Now, it does help, according to PFF, it's easily the best offensive line of Baker's career, but you got to give the front office and Stefanski some credit for that as well. So, best friend necklace.
You guys do that?
I haven't.
You haven't?
But Goulet seems like the type of guy that was really tight with.
I gave you one. You're not wearing it?
Okay.
What gift would you give Tom Brady?
Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. That's nothing against Bruce Arians, but he's 30-11 in the postseason with those guys. Does that not sound amazing to you? He's played 41 playoff games. He's won 30. And by the way, Peyton Manning and Big Ben were in their prime, and Mahomes was at the end of his AFC run. That's a stupid record.
What about Russell Wilson, your favorite?
Well, let me think about this. A sous chef, the number 2 chef in the kitchen. So Russ is the chef, but he needs a sous chef, a helper, because the Seahawks have the highest passing percentage in the league, 61%. He's been sacked 40 times, the second most. They have the worst passing defense, so they're always in shootouts. And oh, by the way, Chris Carson, who's a splendid running back, has missed 4 games. So he needs a little prep help in the kitchen. Somebody to, when he's frantic and there's big orders, just, hey, can you give me a little heads up?
It's very thoughtful. You always have one person that you think a little bit more about.
Yeah.
Put a little more thought into.
How I roll.
How about Jerry Jones?
I do love Jerry. I may criticize him, but I do love him. You know what I'd like to get him? I'd like to give him a GM so he can retire from it. They've not drafted a Pro Bowl player in 4 years. They have $66 million wrapped up, running back, quarterback, and a wide receiver combo. He has served as the de facto general manager since purchasing the Cowboys in 1989, and they're 4-9 this year, and they have not reached the conference championship since 1995. By the way, he still would own
course.
Just wouldn't be the general manager of the team. You know, it's funny about that. So, it's a pretty well-documented story that, so when Jimmy Johnson and Jerry, they played football or something at Oklahoma State. So, he bought the team, called Jimmy, and flew him in, and they took the job. Jimmy was in Miami. And so, again, I'm not breaking news here. So the first several years, Jerry didn't meddle. Jerry was at one side of the building because Jerry put a lot of money up and he was up against it. Like, this was not a it was a cash flow issue. They were terrible. So Jerry was at one side of the building. Jimmy was doing the football, and Jerry never, ever bothered him in the first 2 to 3 years. They were both working 17 hours a day or more. So Jerry was doing business and operations and getting Pepsi deals and sweet sales. And for the first couple of years, they didn't see anything. And then Jimmy's just doing the football stuff. So it was really a good marriage. And then they start winning Super Bowls. And the business is now rolling. Jerry can spend a little less time on that. Charlotte's getting older. Stephen Jones, a family. He's got infrastructure on the business side. And Jerry goes to Jimmy and says, listen, I own the team. I want to have some fun too. And that was the beginning of their problems. And that's when Jimmy said, listen, I'm a football guy. This is what I do. I'm going to, Jimmy's like, I don't worry about your side. I don't want you worrying too much about our side. And whereas Jerry Jones did have an understanding of the Cowboys personnel to some level, he didn't really get NFL personnel. And so that was if you look at where it all went wrong, Jimmy and Jerry were on opposite sides of the building for a long time. When they started winning and the operations were now sort of in a groove and the money was flowing in, and Jerry's like, okay, I'm bored.
And, Jimmy's getting a lot of credit.
A lot of credit. Listen, this is what always hurt the Lakers, is that Phil wanted credit and the players wanted credit and Riley wanted credit and Jerry West. It's okay. Like, these are successful men. This is why dynasties don't last long in sports. Men screw it up.
We do have those ego things to deal with every day.
I mean, I'm so glad I never got one, but from what I've heard, they're very difficult to deal with.
Pesky.
Discovery Plus, all the shows you love, favorite brands like the Food Network and HGTV, and they have exclusive originals. It is a new streaming service. It's coming out next year. And I want to thank Greg Jennings, Greg Cosell, my friend Ryen Russillo. We will see you tomorrow. This just looks so sweatery, soup and sweatery on our set today. It's the hurt.
Hi, this is Yang here, and if you're as excited as I am about the upcoming 4th season of Search Party on HBO Max, then you'll want to tune in to Search Party, the podcast. In each episode, I go behind the scenes with the writers and actors of the disturbingly dark comedy and chat favorite moments and themes with special guest celebrity fans. Search Party Season 4 comes to HBO Max on January 14th, with Seasons 1 through 3 available now. Meanwhile, subscribe and listen to Search Party, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're going to come into a new season of joy and fulfillment like you've never seen. Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I have a daily podcast where I talk about overcoming obstacles, accomplishing dreams, and becoming all you were created to be. You may have had some disappointments in the past, but this is a new day. Keep feeding your hopes, feeding your dreams. Use your energy to feed your destiny. Listen to the Joel Osteen Daily Podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever